What would happen if you said yes to every opportunity that presented itself to you? If you not only said yes, but you truly dedicated yourself to making the most out of those opportunities and taking on new challenges? What could you accomplish in your career and in your relationships? Many people see fashion as an industry you can only break into if you have the money, the connections, you were born into it, or you're just extremely lucky. And while making a name for yourself in the fashion industry is an extremely difficult task, Glenn Martens, current creative director of both French fashion brand Y Project and Italian fashion brand Diesel, shows us that it is possible. So let's talk about his design philosophy and how he went from humble beginnings to leading the industry. How do you create the world's most innovative jeans? A basic garment we all know and love, but what is there to improve on? 46 years ago, Diesel set out to do just that by introducing the first worn-in and destroyed jeans into the market, alongside provocative ad campaigns that appealed heavily to the countercultures of the time. Diesel positioned itself as the alternative to fashion, clothing for rebels, and quickly became the industry leader in innovative denim throughout the 90s and early 2000s. But as the recession began in 2008, things started to go downhill for them. Poor management sent Diesel into a death spiral, and in 2019, to no one's surprise, they filed for bankruptcy. However, that wasn't the end for the brand. It was more of a midlife crisis, and instead of buying a new red Corvette, they decided to make a much more sound investment. And that investment was a visionary creative director. Someone who could stay true to the brand's core values and usher them into a new generation of relevance and profit. And Glenn Martens was the investment. Born in Bruges, Belgium, Glenn was raised in a relatively normal household. He loved art from an early age, and his passion for clothing came inadvertently from his father's passion for history. And through that love of the past, Glenn would illustrate the portraits of great historical figures, specifically King Henry VIII and Cleopatra. And from portraiture, he went on to realize that what made these figures truly recognizable was the ornate, carefully crafted clothing they would wear. Clothes maketh the man. But when seeking to understand Glenn Martens' design philosophy, how he approaches his collections not only at Diesel, but at Y Project as well, it's important to understand where and how his creativity was formed, what sparked that love of fashion, how he approaches clothing not as something cheap and disposable, not as something trendy or viral, but as an appreciation of craft, a point where history meets modernity. And as Glenn Martens puts it, his work at Diesel is an alternative to fashion, imbued within it a sense of experimental fun, a reflection of who he is as a person. At 18, Glenn began his studies in Latin, thinking that his intellect would decide his career path. But eventually, like all creatives at heart, he started to feel himself being pulled in a different direction, one towards the arts, to a field that would challenge his mind while feeding his passion for creativity. So he shifted his studies to that of interior architecture, which he quickly realized he didn't particularly enjoy either. However, interior architecture introduced Glenn to like-minded people who also express themselves creatively: artists, musicians, fashion lovers, and more. He became familiar with counterculture and the LGBT community he had always silently identified with while growing up, but had never felt comfortable stepping into, as he felt convinced there was not a single open LGBT person in his entire hometown of Bruges where he spent his youth, and that he would be the only outlier. So finding that group of people in the arts who he could truly be himself around allowed Glenn to gain confidence in his identity, flourish as a creative, and propel himself towards his true calling. And when he realized that true calling, fashion design, he submitted his application to Antwerp's Royal Academy of Fine Arts with just a few sketches and was accepted. And I would love to see those sketches and find out how he made such an impression with just a few pieces of work and not an entire portfolio. But Glenn became another in a long line of Antwerp top fashion designers who went on to change the fashion landscape. Training at the Royal Academy instilled in him a passion for garment construction and an approach to design that began within the garment.
So every garment has a twist, has a proper design, a take on design. It's a proper development, so you're never going to get just your classic shirt with a different colored sleeve. This has to be a proper concept behind it.
When most people design clothes, they start with the outside, the silhouette, the color, the fabric, and the drape. But Glenn reinvented the typical design process and used his deep understanding of tailoring, patterning, and artisanal techniques to approach fashion design from a perspective rooted in curiosity, technicality, and conceptualism. To break down clothing into their individual components and manipulate them to create something new, something subversive, something surprising. He was drawing from his background in interior architecture to shape the way he approached clothing in the present. After graduating from the Royal Academy, he joined the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier, taking on the role of junior designer for women's pre-collections and the menswear diffusion line G2. Jean-Paul Gaultier is a house built on provocative design and impeccable craft that helped to mold Glenn's design identity and his unique approach to fashion even further, preparing him for the rigor of being a professional in the fashion industry. And during this time, Glenn was simultaneously running his own eponymous label, which lasted for 3 seasons. A designer who never felt like he was doing enough, constantly looking to where he could improve, what he could learn, how he could grow, saying yes to everything, all to become a better designer. In early 2013, Martens transitioned to the French brand Y Project as the first assistant to the creative director and founder Johann Sarfati. Forgive me for mispronouncing his name. A position which unfortunately ended abruptly when Johann passed away in April of the same year, thereby thrusting Glenn into the role of creative director. However, while Glenn was appointed to this position prematurely, he by no means took it lightly, and approached it with great consideration, respect for the brand's established codes and its founder, and designed his collections at Y Project with a great sense of introspection and understanding. Glenn returned to his youth for inspiration in these early years of growing up in Bruges surrounded by Gothic architecture, which he drew from to shape the structural silhouettes and sculptural forms within his collections. He brought his childhood love of historical portraiture and dress into his process, impregnating his work with a sense of grandiose, one-of-a-kind artistry reminiscent of Rococo antiquity. He was neither designing for the consumer looking for a simple logo tee, nor the consumer looking for gaudy luxury. He was crafting a wardrobe for lovers of subversive, statement fashion who wanted something more from their clothing that they couldn't get anywhere else. And as Glenn worked tirelessly to shape the identity of Y Project, this up-and-coming brand quickly became one of the most anticipated slots in the Paris Fashion Week schedule, and solidified Glenn Martens as a powerhouse in the industry. In 2017, he was awarded the Andem Fashion Prize and was granted 280,000 euros to invest towards the growth of Y Project, a prize previously granted to some of the most influential designers in recent history like Martin Margiela. And in 2020, Glenn won the same prize again. By 2019 and 2020, Glenn was reaching global popularity and recognition as someone who was redefining both men's and women's wear.
I could never make something just pretty. Making a pretty dress doesn't make any sense for me. This, especially not for Y projects, there needs to be a concept behind it.
Someone who was becoming known for saying yes to every opportunity he was presented with, while never compromising in his design vision or his values. A designer built through rigor and discipline, who has earned the respect of every team he has worked with and led. Someone who can take the essence of a house's core tenets and create something new, fresh, and relevant. And Diesel, facing bankruptcy in 2019, needed someone at the helm who would bring that fresh perspective. a designer and curator who knew how to honor core house values, integrate them into their own method, and speak to the new generation of consumers in a way that resonated with them deeply. In October of 2020, after designing a small collection for the brand, a test of sorts, Glenn's vision and work ethic earned him the trust of Renzo Rosso, the founder of Diesel, and with it the appointment to artistic director for Total Brand, a position encompassing both men's and women's collections, accessories, fragrances, watches, and jewelry, as well as the interior design of their stores and real estate projects with Diesel Living and home decor. An immense amount of responsibility to rebrand Diesel's public image and return the company to profit, with thousands of people relying on him and billions of dollars at stake. All while Glenn was simultaneously serving as creative director of a Y project, which is almost 700 miles away from Diesel's headquarters in Italy. Glenn Martens works in Paris on Monday, Italy from Tuesday to Thursday, and then back to Paris on Friday. He works 7 days a week, all with the goal of creating a more positive future. With Diesel, his designs seek to reflect the society he wishes to live in. A society with a belief system rooted in sustainability, democracy, fun, and in living life to the fullest. Rare qualities to find in a brand at all, let alone a multi-billion-dollar fashion brand. Yet for Glenn, at the root of his design philosophy and a non-negotiable is sustainability. And that doesn't just mean using organic materials and sourcing ethical labor. Sustainability at Diesel, and for Glenn Martens specifically, is an opportunity to innovate and to create things never before seen. He approaches sustainability in a way that reveals entirely new avenues for design and artisanal craftsmanship, to show his audience that we can build a better future, we can design sustainably, and we can do so while enjoying fashion. As Glenn Martens puts it himself, being sustainable is really the responsibility we have today when you're at the head of a global brand, because we're all very aware that the world is fucked and is going to get more and more fucked very soon. I think at this stage for a denim brand of our size, we are probably one of the most forward-thinking companies in sustainability for denim. From his debut collection, Spring-Summer 2022, where he focused on upcycling and reusing dead stock fabrics to create new, impactful garments that didn't require the development of any new fabric, to Fall-Winter 22, when instead of using real fur or polyester fur, he just made fur out of denim. Innovations thanks to investment in sustainability, led by an artisanal department at Diesel that is committed to the reinterpretation and reinvention of conventional materials to create new, exciting, beautiful fabrics and techniques that challenge the very nature of ready-to-wear fashion with craftsmanship fit for the couture runway. Glenn Martens has anchored his design philosophy not in only sustainability through innovative research, but also in the concept of democracy. Diesel was founded on denim, the most democratic fabric available, and specifically creating an alternative denim for those who are looking for an alternative fashion. And at Diesel, he represents the unrepresented, the alternative. He designs not for the luxury consumer typical of fashion brands, but for everyone who's interested and shares similar values. With denim, experimentation, and fun being so central to the identity of Diesel. As creative director, Glenn was provided with the perfect opportunity to see his vision, his belief system come to life, to spread his message, his creativity, and the work of his team with the world. Focused almost entirely on the development of a common material everyone has in their closet, denim. Infinitely versatile with limitless opportunities for experimentation. However, Diesel is not a brand like Dior or Saint Laurent. The Diesel consumer is an active person looking for active clothing, simple, daily pieces to live their lives in that must be comfortable and functional while still pushing the boundaries of fashion. Glenn Martens is the king of experimentation for the active consumer. And as a baseline for the Diesel consumer, Glenn Martens developed a foundation of versatile, timeless basics sourced and produced responsibly, the Diesel Library, which serve as the core pieces of not only a Diesel wardrobe, but any wardrobe. Glenn is never quick to abandon his previous work in order to follow the latest trends, because he doesn't care about trends or going viral. Instead, he seeks to define the landscape in which he operates in. With his runway shows, he refuses to rely on gimmicks to attract attention. His shows add context to the lifestyle of his consumer and the world in which his clothing exists. Visual representations of the society he is working towards, using his shows to spread his message of love, of democracy, of fun. Where the Fall/Winter 23 show featured a mountain of condoms in a collaboration with Durex in promotion of safe sex, where after the show, all of the condoms were just given away. Or go back to the Fall/Winter 2022 show that features the largest blow-up doll in history, a set piece not meant to elevate the brand beyond what it is, but to have fun and reflect the free-spirited, carefree lifestyle of their consumer with some humor, while also breaking down the barrier between the runway show invitation and the general population, when for the Fall/Winter 2024 collection, they set up a video Zoom call with 1,000 members of the public, giving them virtual front row seats to the show, which drew more attention than any celebrity sitting front row. Or for Spring/Summer 2024, which hosted a free rave and runway show for 7,000 people, with tickets first given to 1,500 fashion students, then subsequently hosting a film festival in the days following the party and show. By democratizing the fashion show, making it available to just about anyone who wants to attend, and breaking down the barriers of a notoriously closed-off and exclusive industry, Glenn Martens has made waves through social classes, demographics, culture, and the fashion industry as a whole, and has reignited the excitement for Diesel that hasn't been seen since the 90s. Sometimes the answer is really to just celebrate what your fundamental values are and who you are. I went back to those values of fun, straightforwardness, and enjoying life. Diesel's tagline of "for successful living" is something that Glenn Martens holds close to his heart and is always at the forefront of his mind while shaping the brand's future. For Glenn, successful living means to be happy in every single situation, to be curious, to respect yourself and others, to be a global individual and engage with other cultures, other ways of thinking, and to love people who are different than you. To be willing and eager to step outside of your comfort zone, outside of your bubble, and become part of the world around you. To be responsible, to have fun, to celebrate life, to love, and to take time for yourself. Even for Glenn Martens, someone who works 7 days a week across 2 brands in 2 separate countries, a person who says yes to every single opportunity, he's only able to stay so focused because he makes rest a priority. He hikes, he travels, and he enjoys his private life when he can. Creatives need time to be inspired, to find new moments of beauty to draw from, new techniques to explore, to rest. All tenets for successful living in the eyes of Glenn Martens, as he cultivates a moment in this generation to live boldly, to love fiercely, to demand better, and wear our identities with pride. At Glenn Martens Diesel, each garment becomes an artifact not just of personal style, but of a shared vision. So what would happen if you said yes to every opportunity, to every challenge, to every moment of growth? Glenn Martens shows us that the answer isn't so much a definite result, but rather a journey where your life becomes a canvas for greatness to occur, where every day is an opportunity to shape yourself, to learn something, to reimagine the world around you, and to connect with what's important in your life, to live the life you want to live successfully. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and consider supporting me on Patreon. Let me know what you think about Diesel and Glenn Martens in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.